We cannot say that ethics in public services was the central concern. Ethics in public services can be considered one such central concern, but not the only concern. International affairs are considered an exogenous force. Dynamics in geopolitical scenario keep changing. Ethics in public services has been the central concern of Kautilya Arthashastra. Critically examine the statement. What you will write? एथिक्स का मतलब बात करना तो करप्शन से ही रिलेटेड है. Just critically examine the central concern. The central concern is not, it is correct. So he was writing on statecraft. This is how I'll say that. We cannot say that ethics in public services was the central concern. Rather, he was, Arthashastra is a statecraft. And a statecraft is about science of polity, science of governance. This and a science of governance means he gives both practical as well as normative description of Kautilyan system, consisting of polity, administration, economics, sociology, international relations, this and that, right? Including ethics in governance or ethics in public services. The ethics in public services can be considered one such central concern, but not the only concern. That is what question is demanding, right? This. And then next you can write about ethics in public services. Right? This is what critically examined when we write like this. Means critically examined means question को गलत फ्रेम करते हैं, आपसे बोलते हैं कि उसको सही करो. Right? By answering this. अब सही वो गलत भी हो सकता है. Right? वही क्रिटिकली एग्जामिन अगर पहले होगा तो क्वेश्चन वो बदल जाएगा. This you should know that the question will not remain the same. The question, if critically examined comes before question, तो we have to write pros and cons. Then आपको question change करना पड़ेगा ताकि pros and cons लिख सकते हैं. This. Now Indian, तो ये तो क्लियर है वेवरियन मॉडल क्या है एंड कौटिल्य बताया है, गांधी को बताना क्या है, omni present. So this Gandhian rhetorics. Rhetorics are, let's say, ideals. We'll find this, which has been, the ideals have been incorporated in the constitution, especially DPSP. Yes, that we have to write, especially Gram Swaraj and self-governance. Idea of self-governance, idea of decentralization, democratic decentralization. This Weberian model is structurally, we are Weberian, we have adopted bureaucracy, and Kautilya, let's say that we have philosophical influence of Kautilyan administration. This is what we were writing. That way you can write on this aspect. This question. This, what you will write. Have you read your IR? IR पढ़ लिया आपने? बिना पढ़े नहीं आएगा.
Sir, we can write that it help policy implementation, economic cooperation.
So basically you have to write contemporary times. Contemporary times means कि international relation has become an important development in contemporary times, which influences any country very profoundly, right? In terms of its development, governance, etc., what you can consider. It is an exogenous force. International affairs are considered an exogenous force you can consider. That way, let's say that has influence because of geopolitical scenario has changed, and then there is, let's say, very, let's say, dynamic nature of international politics. The dynamics in geopolitical scenario keep changing. This. So when they keep changing, they influence our policy related to whatever, even economic development, governance. These things also get influence. Since he has given his mandala theory about details how a state should shape its international relations, in that geopolitical scenario, Kautilya or Shastra can be helpful. Right? And then you can give the descriptions this way. Since it is analyzed, so you do not have to criticize it. Largely, you have to write in that way. Even economic affairs will be influenced by geopolitical scenario. No, अभी तो चल रहा है ना, टेस्ला आएगा कि नहीं आएगा, राइट? ट्रम्प आएगा तो क्या करेगा, दिस, तो माइग्रेंट्स का क्या होगा, जो इलीगल माइग्रेंट्स हैं उनका क्या होगा, टैरिफ का क्या होगा, अगर टैरिफ इम्पोज कर देगा तो इम्पोर्ट लेट्स से एक्सपोर्ट आपका कम हो जाएगा, एक्सपोर्ट कम हो जाएगा तो ट्रेड डेफिसिट बढ़ेगा, ट्रेड डेफिसिट बढ़ेगा तो आपका सरप्लस इकोनॉमी का प्रॉब्लम होगा, दिस, and just one election has changed the scenario, this. So that is the dynamics, let's say the geopolitical scenario. That's why I told that कि IR relation थोड़ा knowledge होगा तब आप उसको relate कर पाओगे. पहले इतने डायनेमिक्स नहीं होते थे, एक वो स्टेबल चलता था, जैसे कोल्ड वार 40 साल तक चला या 30 साल तक चल रहा है, दिस, उसके बाद एक वर्ल्ड चल रहा था तो वो भी एक थोड़ा सा स्टेबिलिटी रहता था, लेकिन अब फ्रीक्वेंटली थिंग्स चेंज, सिनेरियो चेंज, keeps changing, you'll find this. So when they keep changing, so you have to accordingly, let's say that you have to design your policy. This means that your own, let's say, internal scenario will be influenced by external scenario. In a globalized environment, they are highly interdependent and interconnected. Yes. In past, there was no globalization, so then there was no that level of influence. But in globalized scenario, there is a high level of interdependence. This you can see in Russia and Ukraine war, and then let's say you are exporting oil. Can you imagine this? So you buy from Russia and you export it. Yes. So that way, let's say how the things change. So that is what we have to depict those things and then write on mandala aspect. So that way this question was. ऐसे ऐसे भी क्वेश्चन आते हैं, मतलब कि ऑड टाइप का, दिस. नाउ द स्टेट इज नाइदर ए पुलिस स्टेट नॉर merely a tax gathering state. What you will write? See, मतलब you have to describe the nature of the state. We describe the nature of the state. Saptang principle you can talk, but first you have to talk nature of the state. The nature of the state was democratic, despotic, welfareist. This, that was. So despotic has certain elements of police state. This you can say. But it was not fully a police state. This you can say. Similarly, let's say it is not tax gathering. There was economic system, the mixed economic system, but tax gathering is an exploitative system, like say British system. This you can say, or Mughal system, where taxation was more exploitative, and taxation was more to peasantry class. This, so that you have said. So the state was not tax gathering state. Rather, what was his idea of financial administration? Idea of financial administration was that the state should establish itself a prosperous state. A tax gathering state is a negative state, but a prosperous state is one which has a positive aspect of financial system. It has to establish an economic system which can generate surplus so that it can bring that surplus for the welfare of people. This is what we have to critique one by one. What is police state? What is tax gathering state? What his nature of state was, and that way you have to write this. This. See, tax gathering state is main that its main motive is to, let's say, generate revenue. For what generate revenue? For its own activities. Let's say British administration. The British administration taxation system was just to promote imperialism rather than to promote welfare of people. To just promote imperialism, you need revenue. Where the revenue come? The revenue will come from the peasantry class. This, and that you need revenue so that you can spend that revenue on your military, on your administration. This, so that is a negative state type of this. The tax gathering has a negative connotation. Now today we are not a tax gathering. Merely we don't have to collect taxes. The taxation has the basis for welfare. At the same time, tax burden should be less on people. Yes, progressive taxation, you can say that. There should be less burden on tax, but still you should have tax revenue. So that what tax revenue? It is for resource mobilization. This, so that is what you will counter on this aspect. This. See, they have written people utmost concern of a ruler. This, they you can relate what I told, father and children relationship. This, in this context, discuss significant emphasis on governing government justice in contemporary India. So it is saying that discuss the significance Kautilya emphasis on governing, accountability and justice in contemporary India. Right? This, so governing is the way system of governance that we are having, that we have to compare. Accountability, ki how government is accountable, what accountability he was talking. This rule of law, this is how I talk. Justice, this is how we can say that whether we are able to deliver justice, this to people, that aspect, enforcement of law, judicial, let's say that key aspect you can say. Those examples I was talking, in all largely will talk about rule of law related things and ethics in governance. This, in accountability you can add ethics in governance, rather in justice bring rule of law. How there is rule by law rather than rule of law. Or write positive also, don't need to write only negative. Since positive you can write yourself. Writing positive is not challenging. So you can give examples of also how the rule of law, justice we promote in society. And then the government has various schemes, programs for promotion of social justice in society. This. So that way you can link. So it's about entire package on Kautilya. This, it's entire Kautilya, let's say, entirety of his what he was talking. And I guess it is ending. Plus thereafter they have also asked one two question. It's still, we have not updated 22, after that 23, 24. This. So what is 23 question? Do you have? What is that question? Which question it is? What's first question? Kautilya Arthashastra is a theoretical work on the state and statecraft. Kautilya Arthashastra is a theoretical work on state and statecraft. What you will write? Yes? Will agree and deny both. Comment. Yes. So you can say yes, to some extent it can be considered as it is a theoretical work, as it has normative aspect. That Kautilya also discuss what ought to be, how a state should be governed. And when he talks how a state should be governed, so you can write some ideal components. But then you will say that at the same time, his statecraft was just a description of also practical reality of modern administration. This, his motive was not to formulate a theory, rather to give the description about how that state was governed. This, hence it has a mixed type of characteristics. That is how, empirical as well as normative. Although it remains relevant, this is how towards end you will talk. It remains relevant to work as a philosophical guide for Indian administration. So this, then 24.
What is meant by theoretical work here?
Theoretical work is related to theoretical formulation, theory formulation. The way classical thinkers, they formulate theory. Like say Wilson, the Wilson did not formulate theory. He raises concerns. But what Taylor did, what Max Weber did, They are formulating theory and they are deliberately doing it. It can be considered as a theoretical work. That way, let's say Kautilya, whether Kautilya or Shastra is a theoretical work. So was he formulating a theory? Right. So we can say mixed type. This that way. This is all. Means I'll tell you that you will be able to write answer on Kautilya. This you should know that. So for whatever the question you see, they are all attemptable. So you will be able to do any question asked on Kautilya. They do not ask that level of difficult question or challenging question. Yes. The only thing is that yes, you have to apply your mind and write on that. This and we do not expect, let's say, they will have very ulta pulta type of. In past one, they have asked related to codification wala, the codification of law that they have asked. Once they have asked nature of state, the three nature we have told about this palna or yog, shema and rakshana. So that aspect. What is left? The left is that again they can repeat Kautilya and Max Weber. If we expect what they are supposed to ask, it can be, let's say, they can ask that aspect. When or they can ask economy wala, halaki tax gathering they have asked. But nature of state from economic perspective, we have been expecting a question. Whatever the question they are going to ask, it will be a repeat question now because most of the areas they have asked question on Kautilya.